She wed the cowboy nobody dared to touch. Then discovered why he never removed his shirt. She wed the cowboy nobody dared to touch. Then discovered why he never removed his shirt. Her new husband, Jake Manning, shoved her behind the altar as 3 riders burst through the church doors, pistols drawn. Wedding guests scattered like frightened birds. Jake's hand moved faster than Clara thought possible. His revolver cleared leather and barked twice. The first rider spun from his saddle. The second clutched his shoulder and wheeled his horse around. The third froze, staring at Jake with eyes wide as silver dollars. "You," the man whispered. "They said you were dead." "They were wrong," Jake said. His voice carried no emotion, flat as creek water in August. The rider turned his horse and fled. Hoofbeats faded into the Texas heat. Clara stood behind the altar, her white dress dusty, her heart hammering against her ribs. She had married Jake Manning 3 minutes ago. She knew almost nothing about him except that he owned a ranch, kept to himself, and never once removed his shirt, even when the summer sun turned other men into glistening, bare-chested workers. Jake holstered his gun and turned to her. His gray eyes held something she couldn't name. "Not quite regret, not quite warning. We can call this off," he said. "Nobody would blame you." Clara thought of her dead parents. The farm the bank had taken. The choices that had narrowed to nothing until Jake's proposal appeared like a miracle. She thought of how he'd asked her to marry him without flowers or poetry, just a simple question in the general store. How he'd said he needed a wife and she needed a home, and maybe that was enough. "I said my vows," Clara replied. "Did you mean yours?" Something flickered across Jake's face. He nodded once. The preacher climbed to his feet, dusting off his Bible. "I suppose we should finish this." They finished it. Jake slipped a plain gold band on Clara's finger. The preacher pronounced them married. No kiss. No celebration. The few guests who remained offered nervous congratulations and hurried away. Within 20 minutes, Clara sat beside Jake in his wagon, heading toward a ranch she'd never seen, married to a man she didn't understand. The road stretched empty before them. Jake drove in silence. Clara watched his hands on the reins, steady and sure. Strong hands, scarred knuckles. She noticed how he held himself rigid, how he never let his back fully touch the wagon seat. "Who were those men?" she finally asked. "Trouble from before," Jake said. "Before what?" "Before I came here. Before I bought the ranch. Before I became someone else." Clara absorbed this. "And who were you before?" Jake looked at her then. Really looked at her. His gray eyes held stories she couldn't read, pain buried so deep it had turned to stone. "Someone you wouldn't have married," he said. The ranch appeared over a rise. A sturdy house. A barn. Corrals with good fencing. 3 horses grazed in a pasture. It looked peaceful. Normal. Clara felt the wrongness of it, the disconnect between what she saw and what had happened at the church. Jake helped her down from the wagon. His hands touched her waist briefly, then pulled away like she was flame. "I'll sleep in the barn," he said. "You take the house. We'll figure the rest out as we go." He walked away before she could respond. Clara stood in the yard of her new home, wearing a dusty wedding dress, married to a mystery, wondering what she had done. Inside the house, she found everything clean and spare. No photographs, no personal items. The bedroom held a bed, a dresser, a washstand. She opened the dresser drawers, shirts, all long-sleeved, pants. Nothing else. No letters, no mementos. It was like Jake Manning had appeared from nowhere, fully formed, with no past attached. That night, Clara lay in the unfamiliar bed and listened to the unfamiliar sounds. Coyotes calling, wind moving through the cottonwoods. Somewhere out in the barn, her husband slept alone. She touched the gold band on her finger and wondered if those riders would come back. Wondered what they'd meant when they said Jake was supposed to be dead. Wondered what secret lived beneath those long-sleeved shirts he never removed. Sleep came slowly, bringing dreams of gunshots and gray eyes and questions with no answers. Morning arrived with roosters crowing and sunlight streaming through the window. Clara rose, washed, changed into a simple dress. She found Jake in the kitchen, already brewing coffee. He'd laid out bread and butter and jam on the table. "Thank you," Clara said. Jake nodded. He poured her coffee, poured himself a cup. They sat across from each other like strangers in a hotel dining room. "I need to ride into town," Jake said. "Get some supplies. Check on something. You'll be safe here if you stay in the house." "What if those men come back?" Jake opened a drawer and pulled out a small revolver. He set it on the table between them. "You know how to use this?" My father taught me. Good. Anyone comes near the house, you fire a warning shot. They keep coming. You aim for center mass. Clara picked up the gun. It felt heavy and cold in her hand. Real in a way nothing else felt right now. Jake, she said, what did you do before? Who are you running from? He stood, grabbing his hat from a peg by the door. I'll tell you everything tonight, he said. I promise. But right now, I need to make sure we're safe. He left. Clara heard the horse's hooves fading into distance. She sat in the quiet house with a gun on the table and coffee growing cold in her cup. Outside, the ranch looked peaceful in the morning light. Beautiful, even. But beauty didn't stop bullets. Peace could shatter in an instant, as she'd learned yesterday. She stood and walked through the house, really looking this time, checking windows, testing locks. In Jake's sparse room, she noticed the bed positions so he could see both the door and window. A man who slept ready for trouble. The closet held more long-sleeved shirts. All button-up, all worn soft from washing. Clara reached out and touched one, wondering what he was hiding. Scars, probably. But from what? War? Prison? Something else entirely? A sound outside froze her. Hoofbeats. Multiple horses. Clara grabbed the revolver and moved to the window. Aft. 3 riders approached, but these weren't the men from the church. They wore badges. The one in front, an older man with a gray mustache, raised his hand in greeting. Clara opened the door, but kept the gun visible at her side. Mrs. Manning? The sheriff said, tipping his hat. Named Sheriff Garrett. These are my deputies, Cole and Henderson. We heard about the trouble at your wedding yesterday. News travels fast, Clara said. The small town, ma'am. Mind if we come in? Got some questions about your husband? Clara hesitated, then stepped aside. The men entered, hats in hands, trying to look friendly, but their eyes were hard. Watchful. Where's Jake? Garrett asked. Went to town for supplies. Alone? Yes. The sheriff exchanged glances with his deputies. Something passed between them, some silent communication that made Clara's stomach tighten. Mrs. Manning, Garrett said carefully. How much did your husband tell you about his past? Not much, Clara admitted. Why? Because the man who rode away from your wedding yesterday? His name is Dutch Keller. He rides with the Keller gang. They robbed a train in New Mexico last month. Killed 2 guards, and according to Dutch, he used to ride with Jake Manning. The words hit Clara like physical blows. Train robbery, murder. Her husband had been an outlaw. That's impossible, she said, but her voice sounded weak even to her own ears. Is it? Garrett pulled a folded paper from his pocket. This is a wanted poster from 5 years ago. From Arizona. Take a look. He handed it to Clara. Her hands shook as she unfolded it. The drawing was rough but recognizable. Jake's face, younger but definitely him. The name beneath read Jake Cutler. Wanted for armed robbery and murder. Reward, $1,000. Jake Cutler was a member of the Keller gang, Garrett continued. One of the worst. They tore through Arizona and New Mexico like a plague. Robbed banks, trains, payroll wagons. Killed anyone who got in their way. Then 3 years ago, Jake Cutler disappeared. We figured Dutch or one of the others killed him. Outlaws don't exactly retire peacefully. Clara sank into a chair. The wanted poster crumpled in her grip. But here he is, Garrett said, living under a new name. Bought this ranch with cash, which should have raised questions. Kept to himself. And now his old gang is back, which means trouble is coming, Mrs. Manning. The kind of trouble that gets innocent people killed. What do you want from me? Clara asked. Information. When Jake comes back, we need to know. We need to bring him in, ask him some questions. Find out what he knows about the Keller gang's plans. You want me to betray my husband? I want you to survive, Garrett said bluntly. Those men who crashed your wedding will come back. And when they do, they won't be alone. Dutch Keller doesn't forgive, and he doesn't forget. Whatever happened between him and Jake 3 years ago, it's about to come to a head. You're caught in the middle of something deadly, ma'am. We're trying to keep you alive. The deputies nodded in agreement. Clara looked at their faces, seeing genuine concern mixed with determination. They believed what they were saying. They thought they were helping. Get out, Clara said quietly. Mrs. Manning, I said get out. This is my home, my husband. Whatever he was, whatever he did, he's mine now. I won't betray him to you or anyone else. Garrett studied her for a long moment. Then he sighed and stood. You're loyal. I respect that. But loyalty to the wrong man can get you killed. He placed a card on the table. That's how to reach me. When things go bad, and they will, you send word. The sheriff and his deputies left. Clara watched them ride away, then looked down at the wanted poster still clutched in her hand. Jake Cutler. Armed robbery. Murder. She tried to reconcile that with the man who had asked her to marry him in a general store, the man who slept in the barn to give her space, the man who had pushed her behind an altar to shield her from bullets. People changed, didn't they? Could a killer become something else? Someone else? Clara didn't know. She folded the wanted poster and tucked it in her apron pocket. Then she picked up the gun Jake had left her and went to the window to watch the road. Jake returned near sunset. Clara heard his horse before she saw him. She watched from the window as he dismounted, carried supplies into the barn, unsaddled his horse. He moved with the economy of motion she'd noticed before. Nothing wasted, everything purposeful. When he came to the house, Clara had dinner waiting, stew and bread. Coffee. They sat across from each other like they had that morning, but now the air between them felt different, charged with things unsaid. The sheriff came by, Clara said. Jake's hand froze halfway to his coffee cup. He looked at her, his gray eyes sharp. What did he want? To warn me about you, to tell me who you really are. Clara pulled the wanted poster from her pocket and laid it on the table. Jake Cutler. Wanted for armed robbery and murder. Jake stared at the poster. His face showed nothing, but Clara saw his jaw tighten. I was going to tell you tonight anyway, he said finally. Like I promised. So it's true. Yes. Clara waited, but Jake said nothing more. Just that single word hanging in the air between them. That's it? Clara demanded. Yes. No explanation. No defense? Would it change anything? Jake asked. Would knowing why I rode with outlaws make the robbery less real? Would knowing what drove me to it bring back the people who died? It might help me understand who I married. Jake stood and walked to the window. He stared out at the darkening land, his back to Clara. I grew up on a farm in Missouri, he said. Had a mother, father, younger sister named Beth. When I was 17, raiders came through. This was during the war, but these men weren't soldiers. Just killers using the war as an excuse. They burned our farm. Killed my father. My mother died a week later from grief, I think. I took Beth west to start over. We made it to Arizona. I got work on a ranch. Beth got sick. Needed medicine, needed a doctor. I didn't have money for either. He turned to face Clara. In the fading light, his face looked carved from stone. I met Dutch Keller in a saloon. He said he knew how to get money fast, promised me enough to save Beth. I was young and desperate and stupid. I believed him. Rode out with the gang the next day. We robbed a bank. A guard drew on us. Dutch shot him. Then Dutch shot the teller for good measure, just to send a message. We got away with $2,000. My share was $400. Did it save your sister? Clara asked softly. No. Beth died while I was gone. I wasn't there. I was out killing people for money that came too late. Jake's voice remained flat, emotionless, but Clara heard the pain beneath it. Old pain turned to scar tissue but still tender. After that, I didn't much care what happened. Rode with the gang for 2 more years. Robbed banks, trains, whatever Dutch wanted. Killed 3 men in that time. All of them drew on me first, but that doesn't make them less dead. What changed? We hit a train in New Mexico. Supposed to be easy. Payroll for a mining company. But the company hired guards. Good ones. The job went wrong fast. Dutch started shooting everyone. Guards, passengers, didn't matter. I watched him gun down a woman holding a baby. She wasn't a threat. Wasn't armed. He just shot her because he could. Jake's hands clenched into fists at his sides. I turned my gun on Dutch. Told him to stop. He laughed at me. Said I'd gone soft. We fought. I put 3 bullets in him, but he got me too. Shot me in the back when I turned away. I thought I was dead. Woke up 3 days later in a line shack with an old prospector standing over me. He'd found me. Patched me up. Asked no questions. When I healed enough to travel, I left. Changed my name. Came here. Bought this ranch with the last of my robbery money. Tried to become someone different. Clara absorbed this. Outside, full darkness had fallen. Inside, the lamp cast flickering shadows. You shot Dutch Keller, she said. 3 times, but he survived. Seems that way. And now he's back, looking for revenge. Yes. Why didn't you tell me this before you proposed? Clara demanded. Why let me marry you without knowing? Jake met her eyes directly. Because I was alone and tired of being alone. Because you needed a home, and I needed someone to care about, something to protect beyond myself. I thought maybe we could both find what we needed. I knew it was wrong to keep secrets. I did it anyway. Silence stretched between them. Clara looked at this man she'd married, seeing him clearly now for the first time. Not a mystery, not a stranger, just a person who'd made terrible choices and was trying to live with them. Show me, she said. Show you what? You're back. What Dutch Keller did. What you've been hiding under those shirts. Jake hesitated, then slowly he began unbuttoning his shirt. He pulled it off, turned around. In the lamplight, Clara saw the scars. 3 puckered bullet wounds, each one surrounded by angry, twisted skin. The kind of scars that spoke of infection, of healing without proper care, of pain endured alone. But it wasn't just the bullet scars. Jake's entire back was a map of violence. Long, thin scars from a whip, burn marks. Other bullet wounds, older, partially healed. Every inch of skin told a story of suffering. After my father died, I tried to work, Jake said, his back still to her. Got a job on a ranch in Arizona. The foreman was a drunk who took his anger out on the workers, especially the young ones who couldn't fight back. I lasted 3 months before I left, but the scars stayed. Clara stood and walked to him. She reached out and gently touched one of the whip scars. Jake flinched but didn't pull away. This is what you've been hiding, she said. This is why you never took your shirt off. Shame, Jake said. That's what I've been hiding. Shame for what was done to me. Shame for what I became. Shame for every choice that led me here. Clara walked around to face him. She took his scarred hands in hers. I'm afraid, she said honestly. I'm terrified those men will come back. And will probably die. But I meant my vows, Jake. For better or worse. Rich or poor. I said them and I meant them. So we face this together. Whatever comes. Something broke in Jake's expression. The stone cracked, revealing the man beneath. He pulled her close, holding her like she was something precious he might lose. I'll protect you, he whispered against her hair. I promise. Whatever it takes. They stood together in the lamplight, husband and wife, bound by vows and danger and a fragile, desperate hope that love might grow from such broken beginnings. Outside, the night deepened. Somewhere out there, Dutch Keller and his gang were riding, coming closer with every hour. The peace Clara and Jake had found together wouldn't last, but for this moment, in this house, they had each other, and maybe that would be enough. Jake pulled back and looked at Clara seriously. Dutch won't come alone. He'll bring the whole gang. 6, maybe 7 men. All of them killers. We can run. Take the horses tonight, head for California or Oregon, start over somewhere else. Would he follow? Eventually. Dutch holds grudges like some men hold religion. Then running just delays the problem, Clara said. We stand and fight. You don't know what you're saying. These men are animals. If they take you alive. Jake's voice caught. I've seen what they do to women. I won't let that happen to you. Then teach me, Clara said. Teach me to survive. We have a few days at least, don't we? Maybe a week? Dutch will gather the gang first. Plan it out. He's vicious, but he's not stupid. Then we use that week. And we prepare. Jake studied her face, seeing the determination there. He nodded slowly. Okay, we start tomorrow at first light. But Clara, if it comes down to it, if they're about to take you, I need you to promise me something. What? He picked up the small revolver from the table and pressed it into her hands. Save the last bullet for yourself. Promise me. Don't let them take you alive. Clara looked at the gun, feeling its weight, understanding what Jake was asking. It was a terrible promise. But in that moment, knowing what she knew about Dutch Keller and his gang, she nodded. I promise. They spent the rest of the evening planning. Jake sketched out the layout of the ranch, identifying good defensive positions. The house had thick walls and small windows. Good for defense, but also a trap if surrounded. The barn offered height and sight lines, but burned easily. The best option, Jake said, was to position themselves on the ridge behind the house. High ground. Clear field of fire. An escape route to the east if things went bad. Clara absorbed everything, asking questions, making suggestions. She'd grown up on a frontier farm. She wasn't helpless, but she also wasn't a fighter, and they both knew it. Near midnight, Jake finally told her to get some sleep. He'd keep first watch. Clara wanted to argue, but exhaustion pulled at her. She went to bed still wearing her clothes, the small revolver under her pillow. Sleep came in fits and starts, broken by dreams of gunfire and blood. Dawn arrived cold and gray. Clara woke to find Jake already up, coffee brewing. They ate a quick breakfast, then headed outside. Jake set up tin cans on fence posts and handed Clara his larger revolver. "Show me what your father taught you," he said. Clara raised the gun, sighted, fired. The first can jumped and fell. She adjusted, fired again. Second can down. Third shot went wide. Fourth and fifth hit. Sixth missed. "Not bad," Jake said. "But not good enough. You're jerking the trigger, anticipating the recoil. Let's work on that." They spent the morning drilling. By noon, Clara's hands ached and her ears rang despite the cloth Jake had given her to muffle the sound. But she was hitting more than missing now, getting faster. Starting to understand the rhythm of it. "Remember," Jake said, "in a real fight, everything's different. Your hands shake. Your heart pounds. Time moves wrong. Fast and slow at the same time. The only thing that saves you is muscle memory, your body doing what it knows even when your mind can't think." They broke for lunch, then Jake showed her knife work, how to hold it.
Where to strike.
Clara felt sick practicing on a hay bale, imagining it as a person, but she forced herself to continue. As the sun began to set, Jake called a halt. They'd covered shooting, basic knife fighting, and what to do if someone grabbed her. It wasn't enough. A week wouldn't be enough, but it was something. That evening, as they cleaned weapons and prepared ammunition, a thought occurred to Clara. "What about the sheriff?" she asked. "If we told him Dutch was coming, he could bring deputies." "Set a trap." Jake shook his head. "Garrett's a good man, but he's got 2 deputies. 3 lawmen against the Keller gang? That's just more people dying. And if I turn myself in, Dutch will kill you just to hurt me. He's done it before. Killed the families of men who crossed him. So we're alone. We've always been alone," Jake said quietly. "That's the price of the life I lived. No friends, no allies, no one to call when trouble comes. Just you and me against the storm." Clara reached across the table and took his hand. "Then we better be enough." Over the next 3 days, they fell into a routine. Wake before dawn. Trained until noon. Rest. Prepare defenses. Train again until dark. Jake taught Clara everything he knew about survival and fighting. She learned to reload quickly, to shoot from cover, to think tactically instead of emotionally. In the evenings, they talked. Jake told her about his sister Beth, about the farm in Missouri, about the good memories before everything went wrong. Clara shared stories of her parents, of the life she'd lost when they died. Slowly, carefully, they built something between them. Not quite love yet, but the foundation for it. Understanding. Respect. A partnership forged in crisis. On the 4th day, a stranger rode up to the ranch. Jake had Clara hide in the house with her rifle while he went out to meet the man. Clara watched through a window, her finger resting lightly on the trigger. The stranger was young, maybe 20, with scared eyes and dusty clothes. He handed Jake a folded paper and rode away without speaking. Jake returned to the house and spread the paper on the table. It was a message, written in crude block letters. 2 days. Come alone to the old mission. We talk or we burn you out. Your choice. Dutch. Clara felt her blood run cold. 2 days. That's not much time. It's a trap, Jake said. He doesn't want to talk. He wants me isolated so he can kill me slow. Make an example so we don't go. If we don't go, he comes here. Burns us out, like he said. Either way, we fight. Then we choose the ground, Clara said. We choose where to make our stand. Jake looked at her with something like pride. The ridge. We set up on the ridge with supplies and ammunition. Make them come to us uphill. It gives us the best chance. They spent the next day preparing. Jake moved food, water, ammunition, and medical supplies to a defensive position among the rocks on the ridge. He rigged the barn with oil and kindling, ready to light if needed. Created a smokescreen or distraction. Clara helped, moving supplies, checking weapons, trying not to think about what was coming. That night, Their last night of peace. Clara couldn't sleep. She found Jake sitting outside, staring at the stars. Couldn't sleep either? She asked, sitting beside him. Thinking about Beth, Jake said. Wondering if she'd forgive me for what I became, what I did. You were trying to save her. I was trying to save myself from grief. Beth was my excuse, not my reason. I joined Dutch's gang because I was angry and hurting, and wanted the world to hurt too. That's the truth I couldn't face for a long time. Clara took his hand. In the starlight, his scarred face looked almost peaceful. None of us can change the past, she said. We can only try to do better going forward. You've been doing that, building this ranch, building a life, asking me to marry you instead of staying alone. Those are good choices, Jake. But now the past is catching up. And you're caught in it because of me. I chose this. I chose you. Even knowing what I know now, I'd choose you again. Clara meant it. Somehow, over these days of fear and preparation, she'd come to care for this broken man with his terrible history and his desperate hope for redemption. Jake turned to her, his eyes searching her face. Then, for the first time, he kissed her. Gentle and careful, like she was something precious. Clara kissed him back, tasting fear and hope and the bittersweet knowledge that this might be their only night together. They went inside, made love with the tenderness of people who know tomorrow might never come, held each other in the darkness, skin against scarred skin, finding comfort in touch and presence and the simple miracle of not being alone. When dawn broke, they rose without speaking, dressed, armed themselves. Jake wore his usual long-sleeved shirt, but Clara had seen beneath it now, knew what it hid, and no longer cared. They ate a cold breakfast and gathered their weapons. However this ends, Jake said, I want you to know you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. The belief that a man like me could have something good. Could deserve something good. Thank you for that. Clara felt tears prick her eyes, but refused to let them fall. We're not done yet. We survived today, and then we have the rest of our lives to be grateful. They climbed to the ridge as the sun rose. The position Jake had chosen was perfect from a tactical standpoint. Rocks for cover. Clear sightlines to the ranch below. A narrow approach that would force attackers to bunch up. An escape route behind them if needed. Everything a person could ask for in a last stand. They settled in to wait. The morning stretched long and tense. Noon came and went. Clara's muscles ached from holding still, from gripping her rifle, from the constant state of readiness. Beside her, Jake watched the horizon with the patient intensity of a predator. It was mid-afternoon when the riders appeared. 7 of them, exactly as Jake had predicted. They rode slowly, confidently, spreading out as they approached the ranch. Clara recognized Dutch Keller in the lead, the man from the church, but older and harder than the drawing on the wanted poster. The riders stopped in the yard below. Dutch cupped his hands around his mouth and called out, Jake Cutler, I know you're up there. Come on down and let's talk about old times. Jake didn't respond, didn't move, waited. Dutch laughed, hiding behind a woman's skirts now. That what you've come to? The mighty Jake Cutler, fastest gun in the territory, reduced to playing rancher with some farmer's daughter. Still Jake waited. Clara felt the tension in him, coiled and ready but controlled.
Patient. Fine, Dutch called.
We'll do this the hard way, boys. Burn the house. 2 of the riders dismounted and walked toward the house with torches. Jake's rifle cracked once, twice. Both men dropped before they reached the door. The torches fell harmlessly in the dirt. There you are, Dutch said, his voice carrying satisfaction. That's the Jake I remember. The killer. You can change your name, but you can't change what you are. Murder's in your blood, same as mine. You're wrong, Jake called back. I'm done killing, but I'll protect what's mine. Ride away and we're finished. Stay and you die here. Dutch laughed again, wild and unhinged. Die? Brother, I already died. 3 years ago when you put bullets in my back. The man you knew is gone. What's left is something meaner. Something that lives for one thing only, making you hurt the way you made me hurt. He gestured and the remaining 5 riders spread out, taking cover behind the barn, the fence, the water trough. They had rifles and patience. They thought they had time. Jake turned to Clara. When the shooting starts, you focus on anyone who breaks for the ridge. Let me handle the ones below. And remember, if it goes wrong, save the last bullet. I remember. The afternoon sun beat down on the rocks. Heat shimmered off the land. Below, the riders were settled in their positions, starting to take ranging shots at the ridge. Bullets whined off stone and kicked up dirt. Clara and Jake stayed low, conserving ammunition, waiting for clear targets. The siege had begun. And somewhere in the hours ahead, one way or another, it would end. The standoff continued for an hour before Dutch made his next move. One of his men tried to circle around the east side using the barn for cover. Jake tracked him through the rifle sights, waiting until the man broke from cover. The rifle barked and the outlaw went down, clutching his leg. Not a kill shot. Jake was conserving ammunition, making every bullet count. 4 down, 5 to go, Jake muttered. But Clara knew the math was worse than that. The man with the leg wound was still armed, still dangerous. The 2 Jake had shot near the house might be dead or might be playing possum. And Dutch Keller hadn't survived this long by being stupid. He was planning something. The answer came as the sun started its descent toward the horizon. Smoke. One of the outlaws had circled behind the barn and set it ablaze. Flames licked up the dry wood, spreading fast. Black smoke billowed into the sky, and with the wind blowing toward the ridge, it wouldn't be long before Clara and Jake were choking on it. Smart, Jake said grudgingly. Smoke us out or burn our escape route, maybe both. The fire spread quickly, jumping from the barn to the dry grass. Clara watched their carefully prepared defensive position become a trap. The rocks that gave them cover now funneled the smoke directly at them. She pulled her bandana up over her mouth and nose, but it didn't help much. Her eyes watered. Her throat burned. "We need to move," Jake said, coughing. "Fall back to the second position." They gathered their ammunition and supplies, moving deeper into the rocks and higher up the ridge. It gave them cleaner air but worse sightlines. Dutch and his men would know that, would use it. Below, the ranch was burning now. The house Clara had slept in for less than a week, the barn Jake had built with his own hands, all of it consumed by flames. Everything they owned turning to ash and smoke. Clara felt a surprising surge of grief. She'd barely lived there, but it had been theirs, a symbol of the new life they were trying to build. Now it was gone. "Don't watch," Jake said gently. "It's just wood and nails. We can rebuild. If we survive. When we survive," Jake corrected. He squeezed her hand briefly, then returned his attention to the approaches below. The fire changed everything. In the chaos of smoke and flame, Dutch's men advanced. Clara saw movement through the haze, shapes darting between cover. She fired at one, missed, fired again. The shape went down, but she couldn't tell if she'd hit him or if he'd just taken cover. Beside her, Jake's rifle cracked steadily, methodical, professional. Each shot placed with precision. Clara heard curses from below, knew at least some of Jake's bullets were finding targets. But how many? How many were left? Darkness fell, and with it came a new horror. In the firelight from the burning ranch, Clara and Jake were exposed. Any movement drew immediate fire from below. They huddled behind rocks, unable to see their enemies, but knowing the outlaws could see them. "They'll rush us soon," Jake said. "Under cover of darkness. It's what I'd do." "How do we stop them?" "We don't. We slow them down. Make them pay for every foot of ground." Jake reloaded his rifle, his movements sure even in the dark. "Stay close to me. When they come, shoot at the muzzle flashes. Don't try to aim, just put bullets in the air. Make them think twice about advancing." Minutes crawled by. The burning ranch provided flickering light but also deep shadows. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. Her palms sweated despite the cooling night air. She gripped her rifle and waited for death to come climbing up the ridge. It came with a scream. One of Dutch's men charged up the slope, firing wildly. Jake's rifle answered. The muzzle flashed blinding in the darkness. The screaming stopped. But there were more behind him. Clara saw shapes moving, fired at them, heard someone grunt in pain. Bullets whined off the rocks around them. One tugged at Clara's sleeve, close enough to feel the heat. Jake fired until his rifle was empty, then drew his revolver. Shot after shot, measured and precise. Men fell back, cursing, dragging wounded with them. The charge broke. For now. "You hit?" Jake asked urgently. "No? You? Fine. But we're low on ammunition, maybe 30 rounds left between us." 30 rounds against however many outlaws remained. The math was getting worse by the minute. Clara reloaded with shaking hands, fumbling the bullets in the dark. Jake helped her, his scarred hands steady. "I'm sorry," he said suddenly, "for all of this. For bringing this down on you. You deserved better than dying on a ridge with a man you barely know." "Stop talking like we're dead already," Clara said fiercely. "We're still here. Still fighting. That counts for something." Jake smiled in the darkness. She couldn't see it, but she heard in his voice. "Yes, ma'am." "You're right. We're not done yet." "Below," Dutch's voice called out. "Jake." Jake Cutler. Let's make a deal. You come down here, face me man to man, and I let your woman go. She can ride out of here. My word on it. Your word isn't worth spit, Jake called back. I remember how you keep promises. I remember that woman on the train, the one holding a baby. Silence. And Dutch's voice came back, colder. She shouldn't have gotten in the way. Neither should your wife. But here we are. Last chance, Jake. You for her. Think about it. Think about what we'll do to her when we finally dig you out of those rocks. Clara felt ice in her veins, but she forced herself to speak. Don't listen to him, Jake. He'll kill us both either way. I know, Jake said. Then, louder, to Dutch, come and get us. But bring more men. You're gonna need them. Dutch's answering laugh was ugly. Brave words for a dead man. All right, Jake. We'll do it your way. Boys, I want them both alive when we're done. Jake needs to watch what happens to his pretty wife before he dies. The words were meant to terrify, and they did. Clara felt her hand shake as she checked her revolver, making sure the chamber was full. Save the last bullet, she'd promised. If it came to that, she'd keep her promise. The night stretched on. No more charges came, but neither side slept. Jake and Clara took turns watching the approaches, ready for attack. The burning ranch slowly died down, leaving glowing embers and darkness. Clara's exhaustion went beyond physical tiredness into a strange, heightened state where everything felt both vivid and unreal. Near midnight, Jake spoke quietly. There's a cave, about 200 yards east of here, hidden in the rocks. I found it when I first bought the ranch, stocked it with some supplies. If we can break contact, get there, we can hole up. Maybe outlast them. How do we break contact when they're watching us? Distraction. I rigged the ammunition we can't carry to explode. Set it on a timer. When it goes off, they'll think we're making a last stand. We use those seconds to run. It was desperate, probably doomed to fail, but staying here was certain death, so desperate was better than nothing. Do it, Clara said. Jake worked quickly, tying together powder charges from rifle cartridges, setting them near a slow-burning fuse. When this goes, we run. Keep low and move fast. The cave entrance is hidden by a boulder. You'll know it when you see it. What if I don't? Then I'll find you. We stay together, Clara. Whatever happens, we stay together. The fuse was ready. Jake lit it with a precious match, carefully timing the burn. 30 seconds. Get ready. They gathered what they could carry. Rifles, revolvers, canteens, a small pack of food. Everything else they left behind. Jake counted down in whispers. 20 seconds. 15. The explosion lit up the night like dawn. A massive flash and roar that echoed off the rocks. Immediately gunfire erupted from below as Dutch's men responded to what they thought was a last desperate stand. Jake grabbed Clara's hand and they ran, bent low, scrambling over rocks in the darkness. Shouts behind them. Someone had seen them.
Bullets whined past in the dark. Clara's lungs burned.
Her legs screamed. But she ran, trusting Jake to lead her, knowing that stopping meant death. There. A massive boulder silhouetted against the stars. Jake pulled her behind it and into darkness, a cave mouth, narrow and low. They squeezed through, Jake pulling stones across the entrance behind them as best he could in the dark. Inside, the cave was pitch black. Jake struck another match, found a candle he'd left there months ago. In the flickering light, Clara saw the cave was small, maybe 15 feet deep and 10 feet wide, but it was defensible. Only one entrance. Thick stone walls that would stop bullets, and stocked with supplies as Jake had promised. Water, dried food, extra ammunition. How long can we last here? Clara whispered. A week if we're careful. Maybe 2. Long enough for Dutch to think we got away or died somewhere in the rocks. Long enough for him to give up and leave. It was a thin hope, but it was hope. Clara sank down against the cave wall, suddenly aware of how much pain she was in. Her hands were cut and bleeding from scrambling over rocks. Her muscles trembled with exhaustion. But she was alive. They both were. Jake was checking the entrance, piling more stones to fortify it. His shirt was torn, blood seeping through in places, new wounds mixing with old scars. Let me see, Clara said, pulling him down beside her. It's nothing. Let me see anyway. She examined him by candlelight. A bullet grazed across his ribs, another across his shoulder. Shallow wounds, but they needed cleaning. She used water from the canteen and strips torn from her dress to wash and bind them. Jake sat still under her ministrations, his gray eyes watching her face. You should have married a banker, he said. Or a shopkeeper. Someone safe and boring. Boring men don't interest me, Clara replied. Besides, I chose you. I'd choose you again, even knowing it might get you killed, even knowing that. Clara finished bandaging his shoulder and sat back. My parents taught me that life is short and unpredictable. You can't control what happens, but you can control who you face it with. I'm facing this with you, Jake. No regrets. He pulled her close, kissing her with a desperation that spoke of how close they'd come to dying, how close they still were. Clara kissed him back, tasting smoke and blood and fear and something else. Something that might have been love if they'd had time for it to grow. They made love there in the cave by candlelight, surrounded by stone and darkness, holding each other against the night and the violence waiting outside. Afterward, they lay tangled together listening to the wind and the distant sounds of men searching for them in the rocks. They'll find us eventually, Jake said quietly. The cave mouth is hidden, but not that hidden. If they search systematically, they'll locate us. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after. Then we'll be ready. Clara, if it comes to it, if they're about to break through, I know. The last bullet. I haven't forgotten. She touched the revolver at her side, feeling its weight. But we're not there yet. We're still breathing. Still fighting. Let's focus on that. Jake nodded and pulled her closer. They dozed fitfully, taking turns on watch, starting at every sound from outside. Dawn came slowly, light creeping into the cave entrance. In the gray morning light, Clara could see Jake's face more clearly. The lines of pain and weariness, the scars that marked him inside and out, the determination that kept him going despite everything. I love you, she said suddenly. The words surprised her, but they were true. Somewhere between the wedding and the siege, between the fear and the fighting, love had taken root. Not the safe, comfortable love of long courtship, but something forged in fire, desperate and fierce and real. Jake stared at her. Clara, you don't have to say it back. I just wanted you to know, in case we don't get another chance. He kissed her forehead gently. I love you too. Didn't think I was capable of it anymore, but you proved me wrong. You've proven a lot of things wrong. Outside they heard voices. Dutch and his men searching the rocks. Jake motioned for silence and they froze, barely breathing. The voices came closer. Paused near the cave entrance. Clara's hand found her revolver, finger resting on the trigger. One of the outlaws spoke. Boss, there's a cave here, behind this boulder. Dutch's voice colder than ice. Check it. Sounds of movement. Stones being pulled away from the entrance. Jake positioned himself in front of Clara, rifle ready. This was it. The last stand they'd been delaying. Clara said a quick prayer to the god she'd grown up with but hadn't spoken to in years. A shadow appeared in the cave mouth. Jake's rifle cracked. The shadow fell back with a scream. More shapes, more gunfire. The cave filled with smoke and the deafening roar of weapons in enclosed space. Clara fired her revolver until it was empty, reloaded, fired again. Men fell back, wounded or dead, she couldn't tell. Then silence. Broken only by moaning from the wounded outside. Jake crouched at the entrance, rifle ready, waiting for the next assault. Dutch's voice came from somewhere behind the rocks. You're trapped, Jake. Sooner or later we'll smoke you out or starve you out. Make it easy on yourself. Come out now and I'll make it quick. Go to hell, Jake called back. Been there already. Wasn't so bad. Dutch laughed, that same unhinged sound Clara had heard before. Tell you what, I'm a sporting man. One more offer. You and me, Jake. Fair fight. Guns, knives, fists, whatever you want. Winner walks away. Loser dies. Your woman goes free either way. Jake didn't answer immediately. Clara grabbed his arm. Don't even think about it. He's lying. The minute you step out there, his men will cut you down. Maybe. But maybe he means it. Dutch always respected strength, respected men who'd fight. It's the cowards and the weak he likes to torture. You're not going out there. If it's the only way to save you, then we both die in this cave. Together. That was the deal, remember? We stay together. Whatever happens, we stay together.
Jake met her eyes.
Saw the iron determination there. Saw that she meant every word. He nodded slowly. Together, he agreed. Outside, Dutch waited. When no answer came, he cursed. Fine, we'll do this the hard way. Boys, gather brush and wood. We're going to smoke 'em out like rats. The next hour was agony. Clara and Jake heard the outlaws gathering fuel, piling it near the cave entrance. They soaked it with lamp oil taken from the ranch. Then they lit it. Thick, acrid smoke began pouring into the cave. Clara coughed, eyes streaming. Jake pulled her deeper into the cave, found a crack in the rocks that let in a small amount of fresh air. They pressed their faces to it, gasping, trying to breathe. "We can't last long like this," Clara said between coughs. "I know. But they can't maintain a fire like that for hours either. They'll run out of fuel. We just have to outlast it." The smoke grew thicker. Clara felt lightheaded, dizzy. Her lungs screamed for clean air. Beside her, Jake was coughing violently, his face pale in the dim light. They were dying slowly, suffocating in their stone prison. Then, miraculously, the smoke began to thin. The outlaws had run out of fuel, just as Jake predicted. The fire outside died down. Fresh air, blessed and cool, began to filter into the cave. Clara and Jake gulped it down, their lungs burning but grateful. "That won't be the last try," Jake said hoarsely. "They'll try something else. Dutch is patient when he wants to be. He'll keep at us until we're dead or he runs out of options. How much ammunition do we have left?" Jake counted quickly. "Maybe 20 rounds between us. Not enough for another sustained fight." Clara felt despair trying to creep in, but she pushed it back. They were still alive. Still together. That had to count for something. The day dragged on. No more attacks came, but Dutch's men remained outside, keeping watch. Waiting. Clara and Jake rationed their water and food carefully, dozed when they could, kept weapons close, existed in a strange limbo between life and death, safety and danger. As evening approached, Jake spoke quietly. "There might be another way out. When I first explored this cave, I felt air movement from deeper in. Might be another crack or passage to the surface. If we could find it, get through it, we could escape while they're watching this entrance. That's a lot of ifs. Better than sitting here waiting to die." Clara agreed. Jake lit their last candle and they moved to the back of the cave. The ceiling lowered, forcing them to crawl. Jake led the way, testing the rock, feeling for air currents. Clara followed, her dress torn and filthy, her hair tangled with dust and spider webs. 20 feet back, the cave split. One passage went down. The other slanted up. Jake chose the upward passage, reasoning that it was more likely to lead to the surface. The passage was narrow, barely wide enough to squeeze through. Claustrophobia clawed at Clara's throat, but she forced herself forward. Behind them, the candle guttered in the reduced airflow. The passage twisted and turned. Once Clara got stuck, the stone pressing against her from all sides. Panic seized her. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Jake's voice came back to her through the darkness, calm and steady. "Easy. Don't fight it. Breathe out. Make yourself smaller. There you go. Just a little more." She inched forward, rock scraping her shoulders and back, feeling like the mountain itself was trying to crush her. Then, suddenly, the passage widened. She could move freely again. Could breathe. The candle died, plunging them into absolute darkness. But Jake was right about the air. Clara could feel it moving against her face, fresh and cool. There was another opening somewhere ahead. They crawled in darkness, feeling their way forward, trusting touch and instinct. Clara's hands were bloody, her knees bruised. But she kept going. Jake's presence ahead of her, his occasional words of encouragement, kept her moving. Light, faint at first, just a grayness in the black. But growing stronger. Jake's shape became visible ahead of her, crawling toward a crack in the stone. He reached it, pushed through. Clara followed and found herself on a rocky slope. Open sky above her. Freedom just yards away. They emerged on the far side of the ridge, well away from where Dutch's men were watching the main cave entrance. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. To Clara, it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. "We made it," she whispered, hardly believing it. "Not yet," Jake said grimly. "We're out of the cave, but we're on foot in open country with killers hunting us. We need horses, supplies, a head start. Where's the nearest town?" "Copper Creek. 20 miles east. If we can get there, we can get help. Sheriff Garrett might not like me, but he won't let Dutch murder us in the street. 20 miles on foot, with Dutch and his gang between them and safety." It seemed impossible, but they'd survived this long. Clara wasn't about to give up now. They moved carefully down the slope, using what cover they could find. The twilight helped, making them harder to see, but it also made the terrain treacherous. Twice Clara nearly fell, caught at the last moment by Jake's quick hands. They'd gone maybe half a mile when they heard hoofbeats behind them. Dutch's men had found the cave entrance empty and were searching. Clara and Jake dove behind rocks as 3 riders thundered past, heading east toward Copper Creek. Smart. Dutch was cutting off their escape route. "We can't go east now," Jake said. "They'll be watching the road." "Where then?" "West. There's a line shack about 15 miles that way. Belongs to the Circle T Ranch. We can get horses there, supplies. Then we circle back and make for town from a different direction." West meant going deeper into the wilderness, away from help. But it also meant avoiding Dutch's net. Clara nodded agreement. They walked through the night, following game trails and dry creek beds. Jake moved with the confidence of a man who knew the land. Clara followed, exhaustion weighing on her like physical chains. Her feet blistered. Her muscles screamed. But she kept going. Dawn found them still miles from the line shack. They rested briefly, sharing the last of their water and food. Clara's stomach growled, but she ignored it. Hunger was uncomfortable, but not immediately deadly. Dutch Keller was. By mid-morning, they reached the line shack. It was a small, rough structure built against a hillside. Jake approached carefully, checking for signs of occupation. Finding none, he motioned Clara inside. The shack held basic supplies. Dried beans, coffee,
Jerky?
and most importantly, 2 horses in a corral out back. They weren't saddled, but they were there. Jake fashioned makeshift bridles from rope while Clara packed what food she could find. They worked quickly, knowing every minute counted. Dutch would eventually figure out they'd gone west, would start searching this direction. They were just leading the horses out when gunfire erupted. Bullets slammed into the shack wall, kicking up splinters. Clara dropped flat, Jake beside her. Through the dust, she saw 2 riders approaching fast. Not Dutch's men. These were cowboys from the Circle T, drawn by the presence of strangers at their line shack. "Don't shoot," Jake called out. "We're not thieves. We're running from outlaws. Dutch Keller and his gang." The riders pulled up, rifles ready but not firing. One was an older man with a weathered face. The other was younger, barely 20. "Dutch Keller?" the older man said. "He's wanted in 3 territories. He's after us," Clara said. "Trying to kill us. We just need horses and we'll be gone. You can bill us for them later." The cowboys exchanged glances. The older one lowered his rifle slightly. "You're Jake Manning. Bought the ranch over east. Heard about the trouble at your wedding?" He studied Jake's face. "Heard some other things, too. About who you used to be?" "What I used to be doesn't matter right now," Jake said. "What matters is Dutch Keller is out there with 6 men, all of them killers. If you help us, you might bring that down on yourselves." The younger cowboy spoke up. "Mr. Manning saved my sister once. She was sick with fever. He rode all the way to town to fetch a doctor. Paid the doctor out of his own pocket. I owe him." The older man considered this, then nodded. "Take the horses. There's saddles in the shack. We'll tell the boss it was Comanche raiders. He'll believe that before he believes anyone was dumb enough to steal from the Circle T." "Thank you," Clara said. "Don't thank us yet. You got 20 miles of hard country between here and town. And if Dutch is smart, he's got men watching the approaches. You need to be smarter." They saddled quickly, the cowboys helping. The older man gave Jake directions to a canyon route that would avoid the main road. Harder terrain, but less likely to be watched. "Good luck," the young cowboy said. "Hope you make it." Jake and Clara mounted up and rode hard. The horses were fresh, eager to run. They made good time through the broken country, following dry washes and narrow canyons. But Clara could feel time running out. Dutch would be searching, would find their trail eventually, would come with everything he had. They stopped briefly at noon to rest the horses. Clara's backside ached from riding. She'd grown up on a farm but hadn't ridden much in recent years. Jake checked her over with a practiced eye. "You're doing good," he said. "Better than good. Most women would have given up by now." "Most women aren't being chased by murderous outlaws," Clara replied. "Tends to provide motivation." Jake smiled despite everything. "Yeah, it does." They remounted and continued. The canyon walls rose higher around them, narrowing until they rode single file. Jake led, his hand never far from his gun. The hair on Clara's neck prickled with premonition. This felt wrong. Too quiet. Too confined. The ambush came at the narrowest point. A rope stretched across the canyon at chest height, nearly invisible in the shadows. Jake's horse hit it and reared. Jake went flying, landing hard on the rocky ground. Clara's horse spooked and bolted backward. Gunfire echoed off the canyon walls. Clara saw Dutch Keller step from behind a boulder, revolver in hand. 2 of his men appeared from the other direction, blocking retreat.
They were trapped. Clara drew her revolver, but Dutch shot first.
The bullet took her horse in the neck. The animal went down screaming. Clara jumped clear, hitting the ground and rolling. She came up with her gun ready, but Dutch had his aimed at Jake, who was struggling to rise. "Don't," Dutch said, "or I put one in his spine. Make him a cripple before I kill him slow." Clara froze. Jake got to his feet, blood running from a cut on his forehead.
He looked at Clara, his gray eyes conveying everything they hadn't had time to say.
"Let her go," Jake said. "You got me. That's what you wanted. Let her ride out." Dutch pretended to consider it. Then he shook his head. "No, I don't think so. See, I've been thinking about you these last 3 years, Jake. Thinking about how you betrayed me. Shot me in the back like a coward. You took something from me. My trust. My health. Nearly took my life. So I'm going to take something from you." He turned his gun on Clara. Time seemed to slow. Clara saw Dutch's finger tighten on the trigger. Saw Jake moving, too far away to help. Saw her own death approaching, faster than thought. Then a rifle shot cracked from high on the canyon wall. Dutch's hat flew off his head. He dove for cover, cursing. More shots followed, precise and deadly. One of Dutch's men went down, the other fired wildly at the canyon rim, then fell as another bullet found him. Sheriff Garrett appeared on the canyon rim, rifle smoking. Behind him, his 2 deputies and 4 cowboys from the Circle T. They'd been following Dutch, waiting for the right moment to strike. "Drop your weapons," Garrett called down. "You're surrounded and outgunned." Dutch looked around, saw the situation was hopeless. His remaining men were scattered or wounded. The ambush had become a trap. But the hate in his eyes as he looked at Jake was bottomless. "This isn't over," Dutch snarled. "You hear me, Jake? This isn't over." "Yeah, it is," Jake said quietly. "It's been over for 3 years. You just wouldn't let it die." Dutch raised his gun, not at Jake, but at Clara. Pure spite in his face. If he couldn't win, he'd make Jake lose everything. His finger tightened on the trigger. Jake drew faster than Clara thought possible. His revolver cleared leather and fired in one smooth motion. The bullet took Dutch in the chest, spinning him around. Dutch fired as he fell, but the shot went wide, kicking up dust beside Clara's feet. Dutch Keller hit the ground and didn't move. The canyon filled with silence. Then Garrett and his men were climbing down, surrounding the outlaws. It was over.
Really over?
Clara felt her legs give way. She sat down hard on the rocky ground, her whole body shaking with delayed reaction. Jake knelt beside her, pulled her close. "It's all right. You're safe." "We're both safe." Clara buried her face in his shoulder and let the tears come. All the fear, the exhaustion, the terror of the last days poured out of her. Jake held her, his scarred hands gentle, his voice murmuring comfort. Garrett approached, looked down at Dutch's body, then at Jake. "Clean shooting. Self-defense. I saw the whole thing. He was about to kill your wife." "Thank you for following us," Jake said. "How did you know where we'd be?" "The Circle T boys came into town this morning. Said they'd given you horses and directions through the canyon. I figured Dutch might have the same idea about ambushing you here. Brought some men and rode hard to beat him to it. I owe you my life. Both our lives." Garrett helped Clara to her feet. "You don't owe me anything. Just doing my job." He looked at Jake seriously. "But we need to talk about your past." "About Jake Cutler and the things you did." Jake nodded. "I know." "I'll tell you everything. Names, places, dates, everything I know about the old gang, where they might be. What they were planning. I owe that much. And after I stand trial for whatever crimes I committed, face whatever punishment the law says I deserve. I'm done running." Clara grabbed Jake's hand. "We'll face it together." Garrett looked between them, seeing the connection there, the loyalty. He sighed. "The Keller gang killed a lot of people, but from what I heard, Jake Cutler tried to stop them at the end. Turned on his own gang to protect innocent people. That ought to count for something." "Maybe," Jake said. "Maybe not. But I'm ready to find out." They rode back to town together, Jake and Clara, in the middle of a protective circle of lawmen and cowboys. Dutch Keller's body was tied over a horse, along with the 2 outlaws killed in the canyon. The 3 wounded outlaws rode with their hands tied, facing trial and likely hanging. Copper Creek appeared on the horizon near sunset. A small town, nothing special, but to Clara, it looked like paradise. Safety. Civilization. A chance to rest and heal and figure out what came next. Garrett took them to the sheriff's office. Clara sat in a chair by the stove while Jake gave his statement. She listened as he recounted his history with the Keller gang, the robberies, the killings, the final betrayal when he'd tried to stop Dutch from murdering innocent people. His voice was steady, matter-of-fact, holding nothing back. When he finished, Garrett leaned back in his chair. That's quite a story. You realize by confessing to all this you're looking at serious prison time. Maybe worse. But I'm tired of living with secrets. Tired of looking over my shoulder. Whatever punishment comes, I'll take it. Even if it means leaving your wife alone? Jake looked at Clara. Even then, she deserves a husband who can stand in the light, not one who has to hide in shadows. Garrett was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out paper and began writing. I'm going to write up your statement. Then I'm going to send telegrams to the territories where the Keller gang operated, see what charges might still be outstanding. Could take a few weeks to hear back. Until then, you're free on your own recognizance. Free? Clara said. You're not arresting him? For what? The crimes happened years ago in other territories. I've got no authority to hold him without formal charges. Besides, the man who just helped me take down the most wanted gang in 3 territories probably deserves some trust. Relief. Flooded through Clara. It wasn't freedom, not really. The past would catch up eventually. But it was time. Time to breathe. Time to be together without fear. They found a room at the boarding house. The owner, a widow named Helen, gave them a knowing look but asked no questions. Clara and Jake climbed the stairs to a small, clean room with a real bed and a window overlooking the street. Jake stood by the window looking out at the town in the fading light. Clara came up behind him, wrapped her arms around his waist. What are you thinking? She asked. That I don't deserve this. Any of this. You, or second chances, or kindness from people like Garrett. But you're getting it anyway. What you do with it, that's what matters now. Jake turned to face her. In the lamplight, his scarred face looked younger somehow, less burdened. I want to build something with you, he said. A real life, a real home. Even if I end up in prison, even if we only have a few months or years together, I want to spend that time being the man you deserve. You're already that man, Clara said. You've been that man since you pushed me behind the altar to protect me, since you taught me to shoot. Since you held me in that cave and promised we'd stay together. The past doesn't define you, Jake. What you choose to do now, that's who you are. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. They made love slowly, tenderly, celebrating life and survival and the miracle of having found each other. Afterward, they lay tangled together, talking quietly about the future.
About rebuilding the ranch? About the children they might have someday?
About growing old together if fate allowed it. Over the next weeks, telegrams came in from Arizona and New Mexico. The news was better than Jake expected. Most of the robberies he'd participated in had reached statute of limitations. The killings he'd been involved in were ruled self-defense based on witness statements Garrett had uncovered. Only one charge remained outstanding, for a bank robbery in Tucson. The territorial judge offered a deal. Testify against the remaining Keller gang members who had escaped. Serve 2 years and the slate would be wiped clean. Jake took the deal. 2 years was a lifetime, but it was also nothing compared to what he deserved. Clara promised to wait for him, to keep the ranch going, to be there when he got out. The trial was quick. Jake testified honestly, holding nothing back. 3 more members of the Keller gang were convicted and hanged. Jake was sentenced to 2 years at the territorial prison in Yuma. Clara attended every day of the trial, sitting in the front row where Jake could see her, reminding him he wasn't alone. The day Jake left for prison, Clara stood on the platform and watched the prison wagon pull away. He looked back once, his gray eyes finding hers across the distance. She touched the gold band on her finger and whispered a promise. I'll wait. However long it takes, I'll wait. She returned to Copper Creek and threw herself into work. With help from the Circle T cowboys and a loan from the bank, she began rebuilding the ranch. The house rose first, simple but sturdy, then the barn. She bought cattle and horses.
Hired 2 ranch hands.
Learned to manage accounts and deal with buyers. Became someone people in town respected. Every month she made the long journey to Yuma to visit Jake. They sat across from each other in the prison visiting room and talked about everything and nothing. About the ranch. About the town. About their plans for when he got out. The visits were never long enough, but they were enough to keep hope alive. Jake worked hard in prison. Kept his head down. Caused no trouble. Earned early release for good behavior. After 18 months, Clara got the telegram. He was coming home. She stood on the platform in Copper Creek wearing her best dress, her heart hammering as the train pulled in. Prisoners filed off under guard. Then she saw him. Thinner, grayer, older, but still him, still Jake. Their eyes met. He smiled, really smiled, and Clara felt tears streaming down her face. The guard released him and he walked toward her, not running, but moving with purpose. She met him halfway, and they collided, holding each other like they'd never let go. "Welcome home," Clara whispered. "I'm home," Jake agreed. "Really home." They rode back to the ranch together. Jake stared in amazement at what Clara had built. The house, the barn, the corrals full of healthy stock, the fields planted and growing. "You did all this?" he said. "We did it. This is ours, Jake. Our future. Our fresh start." That night, they stood on the porch of their new house and watched the sun set over the land they'd fought for. Jake's arm was around Clara's waist. She leaned into him, feeling safe and loved and home. "I never thought I'd have this," Jake said quietly. "Piece of home. Someone who knows all my secrets and loves me anyway." "You have it now. We both do." Clara looked up at him. No more running. No more hiding. Just us, building a life together. "Just us," Jake echoed. He kissed her forehead. "Thank you. For believing in me. For giving me a reason to be better. Thank me by being happy. By living the life we fought so hard for. By being the man I married." "I can do that," Jake said. "I am doing that." They went inside their house, closing the door on the past, opening it to the future. Whatever came next, they would face it together.
Husband and wife.
Partners. Survivors. Two broken people who had found each other and built something whole from the pieces. In the years that followed, the ranch prospered. Jake and Clara became pillars of the community. They had 3 children who grew up strong and loved. Sheriff Garrett became a frequent visitor, a friend who'd seen them through their darkest days. The Circle T cowboys stopped by regularly, always welcome at the manning table. Sometimes late at night, Jake would wake from nightmares of the past. Dutch Keller's face. The train robbery. The people who died. But Clara was always there, holding him, reminding him that he'd paid his debts and earned his second chance. Reminding him who he was now, not who he'd been. And on quiet evenings when the children were asleep and the ranch was peaceful, Jake and Clara would sit on their porch and watch the stars. He'd tell her about the constellation his sister Beth had loved. She'd tell him about her parents' farm. They'd share their histories, their hurts, their hopes. Jake never wore long sleeves anymore. His scars were visible now, badges of survival rather than sources of shame. Clara would trace them sometimes, these maps of his past, and marvel at how far they'd both come, from a terrified wedding interrupted by violence to this peaceful life filled with love and purpose. The gold band Clara wore had worn thin over the years, but she never replaced it. It was the ring Jake had slipped on her finger when she barely knew him, when she was taking a desperate chance on a mysterious man. Now it symbolized everything they'd built together. Every struggle, every triumph, every moment of choosing each other despite the odds. People in town sometimes asked Clara if she ever regretted marrying Jake Manning, the man nobody dared to touch. She always smiled and said the same thing. "I married a man who needed redemption and gave me a home, who fought beside me when death came calling, who loved me enough to face his past and build a future. No, I've never regretted it. Not for a single moment." And it was true. Through all the fear and pain and struggle, Clara had found exactly what she needed. Not a perfect man or an easy life, but a real partnership. Real love. Real home. She had wed the cowboy nobody dared to touch and discovered that beneath his scars and secrets was a man worth fighting for, a man worth loving, a man who would love her back with everything he had. Their story became legend in Copper Creek, the wedding that started with gunfire, the siege on the ridge, the cave escape and the final confrontation in the canyon. People told it differently each time, adding details or changing facts, but the heart of it remained true. Two people who had nothing found everything in each other. Two broken souls became whole, and love, real love, proved stronger than fear or violence or the weight of the past. Jake and Clara Manning lived long lives together. They watched their children grow and have children of their own. They grew old side by side, their hands intertwined, their hearts bound together by shared history and deep devotion. And when Jake finally passed, Clara was holding his hand, whispering that she'd wait for him on the other side the way she'd waited for him to come home from prison all those years ago. She was buried beside him when her time came. Their headstone read simply, Jake and Clara Manning. Together in life, together in death, together forever. And if you visit Copper Creek today, you can still see their ranch, still thriving under the care of their great-grandchildren. A testament to what can be built when two people refuse to give up on each other or themselves, when they choose love over fear, when they fight for their future with everything they have. The story of the wedding that started with violence and became a love that lasted generations. The story of the cowboy nobody dared to touch and the woman brave enough to love him anyway. The story of Jake and Clara Manning, proof that even the most broken people can build something beautiful if they're willing to try.